presentation that, as you know, this will be in English. Buenos días, bienvenidos todos a esta presentación que, como saben, será en inglés. So, let me welcome to our distinguished visitor, Dr. PAvlina McGrady from Southern Ohio University, who is an expert and a professor in the tourism area, sustainable tourism. Damos la bienvenida a la doctora PAvlina McGrady, que viene de la Universidad del Sur de Oregon, que entre paréntesis cumplimos este año 55 años de colaboración con esta institución de la Universidad de Guanajuato y que es nuestra distinguida visitante académica. Now I'm going to pass the floor to the Dean of the School of Business and Administration, Dr. Artemio Jiménez, to do the welcome. So pediremos al Dr. Artemio Jiménez que nos haga favor de aperturar los trabajos académicos con la doctora Manuela.
Buenos días, es un gusto y un placer estar en esta conferencia con inicio de esta bienvenida de la doctora PAvlina. Espero que sea una jornada de mucho éxito, de muchos aprendizajes, pero sobre todo que sea una jornada que sirva para fortalecer los lazos académicos y de amistad entre la Universidad del Sur de Oregon y la Universidad de Guanajuato. Bienvenida, doctora PAvlina. Es un gusto tenerla aquí y pues esta es su casa estudios. Y bienvenidos a ustedes, espero que sea divertido. Gracias.
Muchas gracias, doctor Jiménez. Pues de manera muy breve, para no tomar tiempo, leeré el currículum de la doctora McGrady. So I'm going to take just a few seconds to introduce the curriculum details of Dr. McGrady and with this I'm sure that you know what I'm about to say. La doctora PAvlina McGrady es profesora asociada en la Escuela de Negocios de la Universidad del Sur de Oregon. Da cursos en los dos niveles, licenciatura y posgrado. Tiene un doctorado en dimensión humana de los recursos naturales de la Colorado State University. Su maestría es en la industria del viaje, la administración de las industrias del viaje en la Universidad de Hawái en Manoa. Y ha enseñado sobre todo cursos de sustentabilidad corporativa y administración turística. Se especializa en sustentabilidad corporativa y liderazgo de sustentabilidad. Su investigación es fundamentalmente en turismo sustentable, que es el motivo de la plática de hoy. Está participando en diferentes proyectos, sobre todo lo muy importante, que ha analizado los obstáculos para tener un turismo accesible, pero desde la perspectiva de los negocios, y además investiga las oportunidades y los retos que tiene el sector de los vehículos eléctricos. Ha publicado en muchas revistas, sería muy largo mencionarlo, pero dos de ellas muy importantes, el Journal of Management and Sustainability y el International Journal of Innovation and Sustainable Development. También en Tourism Review International, pues son revistas de alto prestigio en el área de turismo y estamos seguros que será de gran aprendizaje. Dejaremos a la doctora PAvlina con la voz para que pueda comenzar. Thank you very much again for this beautiful curriculum and sharing with us, and we will just allow you to start this presentation.
Muchas gracias.
Yo me disculpo, estaré nada más unos par de minutos, tengo que seguir con otra agenda, pero pues los dejo de 15 minutos por Pantoja, que será una jornada muy interesante. Gracias.
Buenos días. Y ahora en inglés. Okay, for the agenda for today, as the title suggested, it will be sustainable and regenerative tourism. I want to talk a little bit about sustainable tourism first, and then talk about what is sustainable tourism, What is tourism in Ashland like? We do have a lot of natural activities. Biking, mountain biking is very popular recently. We do have a ski area. You can see a little picture there, just about 25 minutes from town. And we have a lot of theater. This is the kind of the biggest attraction in town. A lot of wineries, and you can see our Kayak Guanajuato at the top for our partnership, which I think I forgot the name of the local artist who drew that.
Loretta.
So, starting with kind of foundational, what is sustainability? Probably all of you have seen that definition, so I won't go too much into it, but we'll come back to it. I'll just mention that it's a little bit sad that we have been talking about sustainability since '87. We can do the math how many years that is, and still not enough progress in that topic, unfortunately. And when we talk about sustainability, of course, we have to mention the Sustainable Development Goals, which provide a little more tangible metrics or subtopics. That definition is nice, but kind of broad. It doesn't really tell us what to do about it. So here we can see, we have to think about equality in terms of economic poverty, education, health, and things like that. Of course, preserving natural environment and thinking from an economic standpoint. And then, for those of you who are studying tourism, I don't know if everybody's familiar, there is a website specifically for tourism, tourismforsdgs.org, which actually, I think it came out in 2018 or 19, and this was a big proof that tourism is a very important industry to address the sustainable development goals. Because often it's perceived like this soft, light industry that is not so important. And by the way, I see some of you take pictures. I will share the slides, so if you have the slides if you would like. But you're welcome to take pictures as well if you prefer. Okay, so what are some of the major issues of tourism? Is anybody brave enough to say what comes to mind? What are some of the challenges for tourism?
Water pollution.
Water pollution in general, yes. What else?
Well, here in Guanajuato mainly, exactly with water, it's been shown that tourists usually use 3 times more water than locals. And for us students, it's been a major issue because every year that goes by, there's less housing for us due to Airbnb or gentrification and things like that.
Right, yeah. You touched on the major ones in terms of impact on the natural environment, natural resources, and impact on the community with housing particularly, that's everywhere, right? And here as well. This kind of picture is meant to summarize some of the challenges. Too many people who want to go to the beach there on the left. Anybody? Probably not. You can't really enjoy your experience anymore. Elephant, they have to go through very not nice training to allow you to do that. And then gentrification, displacement of people because there's no housing anymore. Those are some of the main challenges. And some of the big organizations like the Travel Foundation released this report a couple years back called The Invisible Burden of Tourism. This was really the first time at a high level that there was a discussion of that tourism is not this kind of light industry that only brings money and doesn't have any impact. So I wanted to share this video real quick that summarizes the invisible burden of tourism.
International tourism is rising and fast. In 2018, arrivals reached 1.4 billion. While tourism can bring economic development and other benefits, it also brings a range of hidden costs. Wherever it exists, tourism places an invisible burden on destinations. On the face of it, tourism pays its way. Tourists spend their money on local services, and businesses pay local taxes and utility bills. But many costs are not accounted for, such as the cost to upgrade and construction non-resident needs to meet tourism demand, the cost to manage and protect public spaces and natural habitats, the cost of increasing increased exposure to climate change risks, and the cost to locals of rising house and land prices driven by the demand from tourism. Either residents are left to pick up the tab, or it's just not paid, leaving the environment and other public assets to suffer. When visitor numbers are low, the invisible burden goes largely unnoticed. But as tourism grows, every new visitor brings unanticipated costs to the destination. As the invisible burden escalates, destinations become spoiled and residents protest or are forced to leave. Failing to account for tourism's invisible burden puts fragile ecosystems, cultural wonders, and community life at risk. This puts tourism on a weak foundation that could crack under its own weight. But it doesn't have to be this way. Destinations need our attention and resources. Dynamic leadership, new talent, investment platforms, and analysis of the invisible burden will benefit visitors and residents alike, now and for generations to come. Find out more by reading the report at invisibleburden.org.
Start a little bit on a negative note, but I promise you won't be over-depressing presentation. So it's a very good report. If you haven't read it, I would highly recommend it to kind of think about these negative impacts. And then I just want to bring out kind of the part that is overlooked, the residents' impact on quality of life. There has been discussion on the impact in terms of the environment, but really the impact on local residents has really come up in the last 5 or so years. This article just came out a couple months ago in Malaga, where they started putting those stickers at Airbnbs that before family used to live here, and now there's no housing for families. And it became kind of a big movement all of a sudden. And of course, tourists are not happy about that, and residents protest and all that. And then another case study to bring kind of the importance of resident engagement is from Australia, Brisbane. It's here on the map. You can see a nice coastal city, pretty big, 2.5 million, a lot of visitors as well. And a couple years ago, or before we do that, Mount Kuta is like a hill, a small mountain by the city where residents like to go. There's a nice view next to the botanic gardens, picnic spot, etc. And then a couple of years ago, the city decided to start this new project to build this skywalk, you can see here on the pictures, to attract more tourists, and then scenic zip line tour from Mount Kuta to go down to the botanical garden into the lower part of the city. So they did a little bit of research and say that this will be a good endeavor. It will promote and celebrate Mount Kuta, and there will be a lot of economic benefits because there will be a big attractions, will have social benefits, etc. However, the residents said that they're not happy with this project. They wanted to preserve their Mount Kuta the way it was. They started protesting, etc. Their main concerns were that the pricing of the attraction will be $100 per ride, which is not very affordable, especially for the local people. And then they checked off the box in terms of allowing community consultation, but that was only for 10 days, so they didn't have a chance to participate. Lack of transparency in terms of conservation of traditional owners, that's very important, especially in Australia. And long story short, zipline didn't take place, the whole project was cancelled, and in that case, residents won. However, a lot of time, resources to plan all of that was wasted, and nothing happened yet. So just an example of how important it is to consult and take into consideration the residents' needs and desires. Okay, with all of that in mind, we're going to come back to what is sustainable tourism and definition for meeting the needs of the future generations. A definition by the World Tourism Organization, kind of offshoot of that, meeting the needs of the present tourists. It seems like we always worry about that the tourists are happy, but also the host regions, that's why we're in red, while protecting and enhancing opportunities for the future, allowing the same experiences for stop me if you want to finish the point. If you don't understand anything, you're welcome to like,
May I say something?
yeah.
Si alguien tiene y quiere que hable un poco más despacio o quieren que se refuerce algo, con confianza, ¿eh? Okay, I just want to make sure.
Fast, so yeah, let me know.
Si quieren que hable un poquito más despacio, adelante.
Slow down, get excited and start going faster and faster. Is it okay? Okay. Okay, great. Well, so to kind of summarize that sustainable tourism should think about the optimal use of environmental resources, conserving that natural heritage and biodiversity, and then we have to think about social, cultural authenticity. I mean, you know, like here, I'm coming to learn about the culture. If culture is gone, then there's not much left besides the natural environment, right? And then economic aspects, of course, we need to bring revenues and contribute to economic stability. But for tourism, another big challenge is that often those benefits are not equally distributed. Maybe the government takes a bigger share, or in most cases, private businesses take a very big share of the revenue, and the local residents who really do the work do not have equal access. So it should help to contributing poverty alleviation, uplifting communities, and that kind of has this regenerative aspect that will come to in a moment. So what is sustainable tourism? Last definition on this. Tourism that takes full account of the current and future economic, social, environmental impacts, probably some business classes, we talked about the triple bottom line, and then addressing the needs of the visitors, the industry, the environment, and the host community. So thinking about all stakeholders. So this all sounds great, but how do we do that, right? It's easy to come up with a definition or tell people this is what you have to do, but how you do it. So I like to use the Global Sustainable Tourism Council, which is an international organization, mainly kind of started in Europe, but they have offices all around the world. And they're a non-profit organization which is working on developing standards for sustainable tourism. And they develop these criteria for sustainable tourism. And they have 3 sets of criteria for destinations, for tour operators, and hotels. And they're currently developing for MICE. Does anybody know what MICE stands for? It's for the event industry. MICE is an abbreviation for meetings, incentives, conventions, and exhibitions. So for the event industry, and for attractions and food service providers, those are actually currently under development. If anybody's interested, you can participate and kind of share your opinion on how they're developing it. So I would talk about the destination criteria. How should a destination be managed to kind of align with sustainable tourism? And they have the destination criteria, these 4 sections, which as you can see are very similar to this triple bottom line. You can see section B, I'll start with social economic, so having local economic benefits and helping for the well-being of the local people. Culture, obviously, is a separate thing because culture is so critical for tourism. And then environmental aspects, again, you have to preserve the environment. And how you do that through kind of sustainable management that you have to overlook those other key areas. So I'll break those into more details with some examples, and then we'll kind of bring it back to together with tourism. So the first kind of section or area is sustainable management. So for destination to work towards sustainability, there should be some kind of department, committee, organization which has this role, you know, not the regular marketing organization, but you know, somebody who has this job title. And then obviously there should be budget and funding, not only for 1 year, but kind of long-term dedicated staff. From my experience, most destinations have somebody, but it's not like their official job. It's somebody who's really passionate about sustainability, and they kind of do it as an extra endeavor. And then in line with that, there should be a strategy and action plan on sustainability, and that should be monitored, communicated, and reported. So for example, in Oregon, the Destination Management Organization, which is in charge of promoting Oregon as a destination, is Travel Oregon. And they developed this Oregon 10-year strategic vision, which I will show an example in a minute, but just wanted to show the key areas. So the vision, okay, we'll come back to that because I have it later on. But the vision is to promote Oregon as a destination, but also uplift communities, kind of thinking about those benefits for the local people. And then how do you have this strategy? It's important and it's multi-year, so we think about more in the long term. Oregon is a 10-year vision. It has to be with public participation. The process was pretty thorough, at least a year or so, where they developed the draft, shared it with the people, we might give feedback, then again, and another reiteration, and so forth, so that, well, you can't make everybody happy, but at least more people happy. So it has to be up to date, publicly available, cover all these areas we've been talking about, and then, yeah, not be lost in the file cabinet or on the clouds, but, you know, really be implemented. So a couple examples of destinations. So you can see here Oregon, the vision is Oregon is a welcoming destination where tourism drives economic prosperity, benefits the natural environment, and celebrates rich, diverse cultures. You see those kind of common themes. And then in terms of mission, we inspire travel that uplifts Oregon communities. This is my favorite part, that it is inspiring travel, but also uplifting Oregon communities. Collaborating with stakeholders to align as stewards of Oregon, taking care of Oregon, and then optimize economic opportunity, advance equity, and respect the ecosystem. You see kind of similar in culture, and keep what makes Oregon, kind of keep all of that. Finland developed a vision on sustainable tourism, and their vision is that Finland is the world's leading sustainable travel destination. This is taken out of the vision. Iceland also is in their 2030 vision, talk about a leading sustainable development. Turkey, I don't know if everybody knows the country Turkey, changed its name to Turkey a couple years ago. They are working with the Global Sustainable Tourism Council to certify all of its hotels and tour operators with that kind of sustainability certification, so they really, the whole country will be kind of working towards the same goal. And then Switzerland developed their own standard called Sustentable, okay, words, again, they developed their own certification and working towards becoming this. Well, I think Switzerland, probably most people think already pretty pristine and all of that. So I think it's easy for them, right? But, you know, again, this kind of global, or the whole country is working towards the same thing. So another important area from section A on kind of management, again, is the stakeholder engagement that I mentioned. So we have to, the destination management organization, the city, the government has to work with enterprise businesses to connect with them and kind of get them excited about that. Regular communication, advice, and then promotion of certification. That's what Turkey did, it's what Switzerland is doing, a lot of other certification in terms of sustainability certification. And then we have to engage residents and staff to be excited about sustainability as well. So I already talked about public participation. And Oregon is doing these Oregon tourism studios where somebody from Oregon, from Travel Oregon, goes mainly in rural areas and kind of hosts a group to talk about what should be developed in that area, what do the residents want. It's not like Travel Oregon comes and says, here's what we'll do, but rather listens, a listening session, and then they're facilitating from there. Do you want to develop downtown, or do you develop mountain biking, or do you want to develop theater, my electric bill from a couple of years ago, back when I lived in Colorado. They send you the monthly bill, and on top of that, they send you a little kind of summary of how you rank among your 100 neighbors in terms of how much electricity you use. And usually, I'm very trying to be very efficient, and I usually rank about 3, 4, 5 out of 100 of my neighbors. And then one month, I was number 1, so I was very proud, and I'm showing this probably 10 years later in my slides. And this doesn't cost anything, right? So having this kind of competition to engage, whether it's the people in your business, students, I know universities do competition, I don't know if you do anything here in terms of dorms, or we are trying to set up a system to monitor how much each department uses in terms of printing paper, energy, and things like that. But in many cases, that doesn't cost anything, but it gets people excited, right? So think about how can you engage. Or in some businesses, they do like sustainability champion for the month or something like that, where you get a little badge. And it doesn't cost anything. It doesn't have to be financial, but gets people excited being recognized because you rode your bike, it's available, or bus, whatever it is. And then some other interesting ways to engage local people. Finland has a program called Rent a Thing, where you can basically connect with a local person and rent them for a day, be your tour guide, rather than a corporation, connect with a local person. And I don't know if the program is still working, but it used to be where you go on a website and let's say you're interested in fishing, you connect with somebody who take you fishing, or you like to go on a bike around town. People share theirs, or you like yoga or whatever. Sweden has a similar program called Meet the Locals, where you can spend the day with a local person, pay them directly, so the money goes to them directly, most people do websites and whatnot. And then Amsterdam has a program going a step ahead called Marry an Amsterdammer. So you could have a mock ceremony, and then you marry somebody for the day, and then you spend the day with your spouse and explore the town. So these are interesting ways to ensure that the benefit goes to the local people, while the tourist has the authentic experience to stay with the local.
What means meet the local? Sorry, I was outside when you talk about. What means meet the local?
Yeah, it's a similar program, right? Rent a Thing. You can click on it. It has a video and website. Basically, you connect with the local suite, and they are the one who take you around town. Meet the locals rather than booking a guide to an agency, to an operator. You just walk around or go fishing or go biking or whatever.
It's like Airbnb experience?
Yes, kind of like an Airbnb experience, but it's you're renting the services. They are guiding services. Yeah. Okay, great. Any other questions?
Yes. How in Oregon, you said that they try to incent the locals, but how does Oregon manage to locals feel like they have to do more for the tourism?
Yeah, really hosting a lot of meetings, the Destination Management Organization hosting a lot of meetings with locals. So in Ashland, we have Travel Ashland, it's an organization which promotes Ashland as a tourism destination. So I think I have on the next slide here, or I don't know if I had it already, but engaging locals with survey. Travel Oregon is also sending surveys regularly to the residents to ask, what do you think about tourism? Do you get benefits from tourism in terms of financial? How's your quality of life? In a lot of areas where there's too many visitors, people are not happy because, I go to eat at the restaurant and I have to wait 1 hour because there's a big wait, there's no parking, things like that. So how they are connected is trying to talk to them, really listen to them, having those tourism studios where people from Travel Oregon or the regional organizations go and say, how is it going? What are some of the challenges? try to work with the residents. I think the main thing is really to ensure that they are heard and engaged and included in the conversation. It's not coming from top down, here's what we do.
But the organization makes something more than just talking to them. And the survey, does the organization takes action on the, for example, on the restaurant, or they have the priority to take more in noticing the locals?
Well, in terms of, there's a few organizations that are trying to ensure that people are getting paid fairly, working in tourism. A lot, as you probably all know, a lot of those jobs are very low paid. So working to make sure that there's a few different organizations to help with working for minimum wage or helping with low income housing. So helping them find housing that they're coming to, in a lot of resort areas, people cannot find housing. Probably that's happening here at Krishna. So having community where this is low housing for people who work in tourism or low income, etc. So there's a lot of different programs, but it's certainly not enough. And then, but if you have any other examples, I'm always happy to share. I have a couple of questions for you as well. But do you have any other examples of how residents can be engaged or taken into consideration from here or other areas you have heard? Giving the question back.
Well, I think that we see it a lot in here because it not only works with the tourists, like Marina said, it also works like the people who rent, so knows that we as students have a lot of necessities, and they know that we have to come to the city and they charge a lot of rent, and knowing that we are not tourists, we are students, and they take advantage of it. And I think it's not a problem that is just in Oregon. I feel like it's happening in a lot of places, and it doesn't have like you said, like the criteria for it, and I think like it's very necessary because it's happening in a lot of parts of the world. And so I don't know.
Yeah, another couple examples that you brought up, the Airbnb again. In Ashland, we have regulations where and how many Airbnbs can be open, and a lot of destinations are starting to limit that because it becomes only Airbnbs. There's no local residents anymore. They get pushed out. In Lake Tahoe, I don't know if you have heard, it's a big tourist destination. I think they just passed a regulation. There are kind of all high-end houses that are people who, that's their second, third, whatever home, they only go whenever they want, and most of the time they sit empty, giant houses. So they just passed a policy that people have to live there. I don't remember the details, but it's something like 6 months of the year they have to be residents in the house. Otherwise, they get charged a pretty high tax. To encourage people to live there, or if they don't live, to sell that property so that it can be either sold to somebody else who lives there or converted to other housing. So I think there's a lot of need of kind of regulation. I mean, there's restrictions. How many Airbnbs, how many days in some places they allow you to rent your house, but only for, I don't know, a month. I can't remember, there was some country in Europe that had a regulation that you can only rent it for 30 days per year, and the rest of the time you have to be there. Things like that will kind of set some limits.
For example, in the rural areas, I know that's happening in the United States, but here there are rural areas that are like the people are living.
Right.
How, or maybe there's an example, how they manage to revive that areas.
Yeah, that's a hard question. I mean, I think they have an opportunity for, ecotourism or whatnot. I know in Italy they are like selling houses really cheap for in those kind of abandoned area to attract people, start living, and then from there, you need a grocery store and hotel and build up. But yeah, think, we have to promote the sustainability if it's part of the fabric of that organization. So Travel Oregon has ideas for sustainable travel on its website. We're going to promote that for the visitors. And going back to your question on how to engage residents, visitor surveys and things like that, and all these resident surveys. Another way to engage the visitor on sustainability, I don't know if you have seen any visitor pledges. So this is from the island of Palau on the left here. When you enter a country, you have a stamp in your passport, but beside the usual stamp, date or whatnot, they add this, a pledge that basically I will not damage this place. Children take this pledge, preserve, protect, tread lightly, etc. So, it's nothing official, but right as you enter, you get this stamp, and it's kind of like, oh, okay, something to have in the back of your mind, right? In New Zealand, they have the same Tiaki promise. There's a video on that as well. I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to go there a couple years ago, and on the flight, almost everybody last on plane, you're required to watch besides the video that you got in your belt. The Tiaki promise basically to be respectful to the culture, to the place, be responsible, mindful of kind of dangerous, riding on the other side of the street, and things like that. So again, from entering the country, it's like, hey, this is part of very important for us. You should keep in mind as well. And a lot of other countries have that. Finland has pledged, Iceland, most North European countries are kind of leaders in sustainability in most cases. In Oregon, Bend, Oregon, one local town just added a pledge as well. On the website, you can kind of say, I pledge. Again, it's not required, but at least to think about it. And then another part of this kind of management section, we're still in section 8, in your skip a couple sections. We have to think about carrying capacity. I don't know if you have talked about that in any of your classes, but carrying capacity, when you think about, the first thing that reminds is how many people we can fit, right? In a hotel or the beach or wherever it is. But we have to think a little broader, not how many we can fit, but how many is okay to not damage the environment. How many is okay for the residents so that their quality of life is not affected. How many is okay so me as a traveler have a good experience, right? If I go on that beach that has a million people around me, I want to have a good experience. So you have to set some boundaries in terms of regulation. How many people is okay to be here? And thinking about seasonality and number of visitors related to carrying capacity. In most cases, it's not the problem that there are too many people. The problem is that there's too many people at the same place at the same time, right? So how can you spread those number of visitors to more rural areas, to off the beaten path, to off-season times and things like that? Community feedback, I think I already talked about. For example, in Intrepid Travel, it's a great travel agency tour operator from Australia, really sustainability leader, if anybody's looking for a case study, Intrepid Travel. And a couple years ago, they developed this Intrepid's not hot list. We always hear about the top hot destinations, the top 3 places to visit wherever. But they developed not hot list of places where you have more authentic experience. You go to a more unique place and things like that. So, that's another idea. And then back to your question about, what can be done, having these restrictions in terms of property and rental policies, pricing, and things like that, as I mentioned. Fees, a lot of destinations have a fee. I don't think there is one here, but I know in Belize and Costa Rica, I think they have a conservation fee. When you leave the country, you have to pay, I don't remember how much it is, $50, I think, and that money goes to kind of offset your impact because you use up, resources. Back to quality of water, invest in projects to, clean the water or whatever it is. Venice just started a fee, but but it's €8, which they have so many visitors, it would be a lot of money, but from a visitor standpoint, €8, some people there probably not. So it's, but Hawaii is talking about, I think whenever they passed it, they would have $100 fee per person to kind of offset, go back to different projects, sustainability projects. Okay, and then climate change obviously is a big problem in a lot of places. So having climate change adaptation strategies national, we have the National Climate Action Plan, some kind of actions that we can work on to prepare for climate. I don't know if you can say to stop it. And then risk and crisis management. Nationally, we have forest fires, which are a big challenge for anybody, and of course for tourism as well, because the media says Ashland is on fire, don't go there, right? And so having a plan for that is critical. So this concludes section A, which is the longest one, but a little pause here. Any other comments, questions before we move on to the other ones?
I have like a question because I've been to Ashland and I know it's smaller than here in Guanajuato. So I know that it's probably not that big of a challenge making the surveys and talking to the community because it's a smaller community. Here in Guanajuato and in Mexico in general, cities are 2 times, 3 times, sometimes 10 times as big as Ashland. And here we have like the students that are coming and going. So I would know if I would say that they're like residents because they are, but they're not. Because since
I mean, the official definition of residence is you have to live there at least 1 year. After 1 year, you consider resident. At least in the U.S., that's the definition. So you kind of get connected with the area, start having an opinion.
Exactly. So since students are like 3, maybe 4 days a week here, and then they go back, and sometimes they take a semester off, and then they come back, and things like that. How like differently would you approach since it's a way bigger population, and maybe making surveys and things like that could be kind of hard, especially here in Guanajuato where you have alleys that maybe there's just 1 house and maybe there's 20 houses, and maybe that house inside has another 3 apartments, you know, things like that. We don't have a concept really of how many people are living here.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you can't reach everybody, right? It will have to be a sample. But I did a study in national residents last year or 2 years ago, and what we did, me and one of my students would go and sit in front of the library, in front of the grocery store, in front of, we have YMCA, which is kind of place where people go to the gym, or where else did we go? In this kind of big area, you can sit in front of the theater, or places where people pass, and we try to go at different grocery stores in different times of the day, you know, maybe older folks go in the morning, or business people go after work or whatnot. And we got a lot of responses like that. It's not representative per se, but you know, we got a lot of responses. I was personally shocked how people were like, oh sure, we have 10 big chairs and just sit down and fill out the survey, and it was successful. Otherwise, Travel Oregon does a big kind of co-Oregon, residency of Oregon, and they try to represent each of the areas, and they just send it electronically and kind of try to use different channels. But I think in person is, it might be difficult to reach that person in that alley, in that house, up the hill, or whatever, but that person probably goes to the store, to the bakery, or whatever it is, and I think that's the easiest to meet them and kind of places they go. Yeah. It's time consuming.
Yes.
It's not easy, but yeah, people for us, we had like 300 and something responses in, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks. We just go a couple times a week. And then in terms of students, I do
works?
Well, we have a goal, in terms of how many responses we want to collect. And then also, in terms of the data, well, depends what type of method you're using for surveys, we try to reach our target number to represent the population, 5% margin of error, whatnot, in statistical terms. I also did interviews. For interviews, until you kind of reach saturation, you keep hearing the same concerns over and over. Then you are, okay, this saturation point, right? There's no new information. I interviewed 5 more new people, and they told me the same thing that I heard from the other 55. So it's, I'm exhausted, all the concerns. That's kind of what my strategy is. But I think I like to have both, like surveys and interviews. Surveys a little more mechanical, or have open-ended questions on the survey where you get really the most important information. And then sit down and interview people and talk with them.
Face to face?
Right, yeah. Face to face or on Zoom, and this kind of makes not everybody's available. Great, okay. Section B from the Global Sustainable Tourism Council criteria is on socioeconomic benefits. So we have to think about what are the economic benefits that are contributed. And as tourism students, maybe you have learned about most countries have a tourism satellite account where, how many people visited that area, what type of hotels they stayed in, and things like that, that is collected at the country level. Which is important, obviously, how much money they spend and all of that. But it's also important to think about direct and indirect. So tourism, as we know, is kind of a big industry. So we have to think about not only how much money they spend in the hotel or different travel services, but it goes to how much they spend on gas, on the car they rented, or pets. I don't know about here, but the U.S. is just crazy with the pets. There's pet sitting, pet hotels. I have a dog, and I love my dog, but it's just a little too much, I think, in my opinion. So a lot of money are spent on pets that travel with a person, right? So anyway, we have to think about the indirect impact, and we also have to think about more on the intangible side. So this is from Fogo Island Inn, like an inn hotel on these islands, and we've all seen the nutrition label we see on food, right? How many calories, how much sugar. But they developed this economic nutrition label, thinking about how are the benefits distributed. So when I'm staying in this hotel, you can see that 49% is spent on labor and 12% on the room supplies, etc. Us as travelers want more transparency, right? We want to know where our money are going. So I think we'll see a lot more of that where we have to really account for all the benefits in economic terms, not just how much money was spent, but how are they distributed. And then also very interesting, you can see here on the bottom, which is a big thing for tourism, you see 65% of the money stay on the island. And then Canada, Newfoundland, which is the area, 13%, and in Canada, 19%, and the rest of the world, 3%. Probably you have studied, like in Thailand, for example, such a tourist area, most of the ownership is foreign, about 6 to 10% of the money spent there stay in the country. Everything else goes out. So there's really no benefit for the area, residents, etc. So here it shows how much of the money stayed with the local people. And then somebody commented about employment opportunities. So we have to think about providing decent work and career opportunities, decent working conditions, right? Usually it's very glamorous on the top where the visitors go and the employees are in the basement with no, like cruise ships are pretty noteworthy about that, right? That the conditions for staff are very bad. Not from the tourism sector, but the company Patagonia that makes clothes, most of you have heard of it, has very interesting policies and benefits for its employees. So for example, I don't know what's the maternity leave here, like if you have a child.
40 days.
40 days. better than in the US. It's more like 2 to 3 weeks, 6 weeks if you are lucky. But in Bulgaria, where I'm originally from, you can take 1 year paid, 2nd year minimum wage, and 3rd year unpaid. So you can stay home for 3 years.
Oh.
But anyway, little off topic. But Patagonia has really interesting policy. So if you have a child, and you have to travel, they allow you to take your child with you, pay for it, and for the nanny, so that you can focus on your work without having to worry for your baby. You can still breastfeed or whatever you need to do and continue growing your career. They are very focusing on activism, so if you're protesting for climate or whatever and you get arrested, they will pay your bail because you were doing something that's aligned with their values. Very interesting policies. I highly encourage you to take a look, very outside of the box. Cost money in most cases. In corporate offices, every 2 or 3 weeks, they only work 4 days, so that people can get 3 days off, go to, hiking or whatever, traveling, things like that. And then support for the community. One example from New Zealand, in this area, Kaikoura, visitors go there to tour, and then they plant a tree as part of the tour. But what's more interesting is then they are emailed the GPS coordinates of their tree, and then if they want, they go back maybe 5 years and they can go try to find their tree and see how it has grown. So kind of connection with the place a little bit, maybe encourage you to go back in a small way. I thought that's a pretty cool benefit. And of course for the community, small planted trees. And then another kind of area from social well-being impact on the social economic aspect. It's very important to think about people with disabilities. I'll talk more about that tomorrow in another presentation. But I do some research on accessible tourism. So for everybody, whether it's a person in a wheelchair or hard of hearing or blind, etc. We have, unfortunately, that population is growing, and there's a lot of, we're all heading there sooner or later with some kind of disability, right, in the aging population. So this market, this group of people will be larger and larger. So as destinations prepare for visitors, there's one area that we have to prepare for, how to make everybody welcome and have access for everybody.
I have a question regarding this especially, because we've talked about it in class that Guanajuato is special. Like it's very challenging because infrastructure, and especially with the INA, which is like the organization that protects the patrimonium and all the old buildings and things like that. So it's not just the architecture, but it's not like an owner of a hotel, even if they're willing to, they are able to.
Right.
Because here, also at the university, we're in the middle of a mountain and things like that. So the transportation is tough, things like that. So it's always been a challenge here in Guanajuato, especially on that part. So I don't know how long you've been here before, but what things have you spotted that could do regarding especially the part where we cannot change the architecture of downtown at least?
I just arrived yesterday. It's my first time, so I've been there about half a day. But it's the same in Ashland. Most of the buildings are historic buildings. We have hills, so there's no way. I guess it's technology. You can have a real escalator type lift or something on the street. I don't know. I'm sure there's something out there. But the solution is, that's part of protecting the culture, right? Those trees, those historic buildings. So we don't want to change that. What, from my kind of study, what we have found is you can be welcoming for everybody. Maybe you cannot really focus on the mobility impairment here because there's no way to make these streets wheelchair friendly. But you can focus on people who are hard of hearing. You can work on those, or people who are blind, or people with cognitive, like neurodivergent. Unfortunately, that population is growing. People with autism or asthma, people with allergies and things like that. So, and that's the same in, for example, one hotel in Ashland, the way their hotel is, the rooms are upstairs. There's no way to make it. There's the way the building is, you can't have an elevator there. Like, we can't really. So what they did on their website, they say, you know, if you're in a wheelchair, we cannot welcome you, unfortunately, you know, the way our infrastructure is. But here are 3 other hotels that are wheelchair friendly, so they kind of help each other. So again, there's so many different disabilities, unfortunately, and you can never say, oh, we check all the points, right? But you can at least focus on, okay, maybe you welcome people who are hard of hearing. Unfortunately, that group has really steeply grown. So, you know, have like audio tours and things like that. So, yeah, you do your best. In some cases, you can't, because you don't want to change the history, right? That's attraction. That should be through the, you know, traditions and things like that. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, this is a description in Braille of a viewpoint. Okay. And then in terms of cultural sustainability, an example here on Indonesia, where they built a luxury resort. And these temples, probably maybe some of you know, in Bali, that, you know, it's a very spiritual place. So these temples are very important to the local people. So they built a resort, but the temples are isolated. They're only available for local residents, not for tourists to kind of preserve. Oregon is working on develop this guide to promote Indian country where you can learn about tribes there, museums, and different traditions. So I'll have to wrap up here, protecting valuable heritage, I'll skip that part. And then another way to kind of engage the visitors, in Hanauma Bay in Hawaii, it's a very popular snorkeling place with a lot of visitors. What they do is they require that you watch this video before you enter, the way it's set up, you can skip it. So it is kind of fun, 7-8 minute video, which tells you, you know, don't step on the corals, don't touch the turtles and things like that. So a lot of people just don't know. It's not that they need that. Okay, the environmental side, I think it's pretty easy. I'm sure you have talked about that in all of your classes, just for the sake of time. Thinking about animal welfare, energy conservation, talk about tourists take a lot more water, a lot more energy, so setting some restrictions. This I'll give an example. The little card that's in the hotels where you're told, save the environment, don't wash your house or your sheets and things like that, right? So they did a study, and depending on what's on that card, the message, people acted differently. So if it says save the environment, not many people will use their towels or sheets. But if it says a message, 95% of the people staying in room 601 will use their towels. Would you? No, suddenly everybody was using your towel. You know, it's just a message. I don't know if that's true, but you know, thinking what's the message, this kind of marketing psychology really plays the role. Okay, greenhouse gas emissions, I'll skip that, and I just want to low impact transportation. This is interesting. In Oregon, the Oregon coast did a study and found out that 90% of the fish served at the Oregon coast is not on the Oregon coast. So thinking about supply chain, not sustainable to ship the fish from somewhere else, while the local one goes somewhere else. So that's not. Okay, and then the rural areas, Eastern Oregon got certified as the largest in the world dark sky sanctuary that just happened this March. Because there's nothing around there, I don't know what you asked about the rural areas. So there's really clear sky where people can really see real stars, dark sky, so you know, something like that. So they are starting to develop campgrounds. So there's not much there, but there is you know, dark sky. There's a lot of people interested in this type of tourism. Okay, wrapping up, I know we're out of time. So sustainable and regenerative tourism, these terms are kind of used interchangeably. So regenerative tourism looks to not only preserve, but replenish, revitalize, make things better than they were before. If I go visit that destination, how can I leave it better than when I went there? So looking to replenish, and I'll just go to the examples if I don't run out of time. So, for example, in our area in Ashland, there is Siskiyou Mountain Club, which organizes hiking adventures through the local mountains. So when you're going there, you're also cleaning the trail and helping in that, so leaving it better than it was. Time Traveler is kind of like an organization that you can book hotel with. If you go on their website, but then with every book, $10 or so go to an organization that the destination decides on, whether for environmental protections or things like that. Plastic Whale is an organization in Amsterdam. Everybody wants to see the canals in Amsterdam. So you take a tour, or while you're touring, you help clean up and leaving it a little better. And then the last example I have is from Elevate Destinations, is a tour operator which organizes tours, and it's buy a trip, give a trip. So when I buy a trip, they give a trip to a local person, mainly children, to take them to those attractions that they often don't have an opportunity to go to, learn about their culture, environmental protections, and all that. Okay, this is a good organization if you're not familiar with on tourism. And I have a lot of resources here put together. Again, I'll share these slides with you for anybody interested in learning more. Books, certifications, podcasts, videos, and things like that on sustainable tourism. So, and I had a little bit of SOU, but I think I'll stop here. Thank you very much. My thoughts on goodies, if you want to grab a pen or luggage tag or notepad and things like that from Southern University.
Well, Dr. McGrady, we want to thank you on behalf of the University of Guanajuato for sharing your expertise, your ideas, your examples. I think we had a big learning. I'm not from tourism, I'm from the Department of Entrepreneurship, and I learned a lot, especially how much in Guanajuato City we have to do sustainable tourism. And also to mention that this is a benefit of the relationship of 55 years of collaboration between Guanajuato, University of Guanajuato, Southern McGrady, but also the sister cities. And everything you explained needs the involvement of the university, the society, and the government also on all levels. So I think in these students, we will have the future leaders in those areas, and maybe they can make it happen very soon. So thank you very much for that. And this is also a very good example of cooperation between departments, because I'm so pleased to work with the Department of Tourism. I want to thank Maestro Walter Mujica, because he was the organizer of this presentation. Everything you see was done by Maestro Mujica, and of course, Licenciada Hilary Jimenez, who is so effective. She's actually thank you very much. And also, I want to mention that here in the room, at the last minute, I invited some students from the 100,000 Strong in the Americas program and the Global Innovation Scholars, who is also a program between Oregon and Guanajuato. And I hope the students from tourism, you can participate in the next round in January. Okay, we have a collaboration in visiting businesses. Marina, thank you for being here. She's graduated from those programs. And we have this opportunity to exchange, also to reciprocal visits between Oregon and Guanajuato. But also, Dr. McGrady is participating very soon with Dr. Monica Perez, maybe, Dr. Rafael Guerrero, in a POIO, Collaborative Online International Learning Project, that is going to be beneficial for the students of tourism. They're thinking of a project at home. So all your colleagues or your classmates are going to be benefited through this kind of exercise. Thank you very much, Maestro Walter Mujica, for being the host and organizing the whole event. And I want to ask Maestro Walter Mujica to close this presentation with a message and delivering a certificate of appreciation for Dr. McGrady. Please.
Thank you, Doctor. Well, we are very grateful because these kind of topics are very important for us. I guess the tourism in Mexico is very, it's a good industry, one of the most important industries. So it means we need to work a lot about some kind of, because I guess we are interested, but we don't know how.
I mean, that's everybody.
So the students are the most important key to do it. So me voy a permitir leer la constancia de la Universidad de Guanajuato a la doctora PAvlina McGrady por su participación como ponente en la conferencia Sustainable and Regenerative Tourism en el marco de la estancia académica 2024, profesor visitante Southern Oregon University, USA, llevado a cabo el 15 de agosto. Firma nuestro director, doctor Rantelio, y la doctora Laura Zárate, director y secretaria académica de nuestra universidad. Muchas gracias.
And there are the this is our cultural feature, respecting cultural interests. And now we have a very simple but very special momentum from the Dean of the School of Business. He had some other commitment that he asked our student Natalia from Tourism to deliver this little momentum for you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for the thoughtful questions.
Well, thank you very much for being here and taking your time, students. This is so important for us professors in this edition, to build an international profile, to develop intercultural skills. And you guys are doing that. Thank you for taking the challenge. Listening to a presentation in English, that really speaks well of you. You really want to take a big part of the cheese in this work. And I wish you would participate very soon with us in the programs. So happy to see that we, both institutions, collaborate, promoting social responsibility, in this case in tourism, which is a mandatory, important feature of the University of Guanajuato. Thank you very much, and we hope to see you the next time. Thank you.
Yo creo que mejor acá. Sí, y la pedimos que.
Sorry.